call the April meeting to order. I'd like to just say ahead of time that anybody who wants to come and speak in front of the board needs to fill out the green form right there before you come forward. So there they are. Let's see, can a roll call, please?
Certainly. Mr. Hurt? Here. Mrs. Remark?
Here.
Mr. McGinnis?
Here.
Mr. Bohan?
Here.
Mr. Moore is absent. Ms. Washington here. Mr. Hoitzma?
Here.
Mrs. Benjamin?
Here.
Mr. Fishback?
Here.
Mr. Neal?
Here.
Ms. Lesage? Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Each of you received the minutes for the February meeting. Were there any additions or corrections? If not, I'll take a motion.
Excuse me, could I ask, is your microphone on? I'm having a real hard time hearing you.
See, that's what happens when you get a little older.
I'll know
Mine
that.
is
I'll
on,
know,
but I'm not talking
okay,
loud
I'll know
enough.
that when.
Right.
Motion to approve, we're saying February? February 23rd, 2012 amended meeting minutes.
Okay.
Second.
We have motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. You also got a copy of the March 22nd meeting's minutes. Again, are there any additions or corrections? Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. You have something you want to add to that? Or? Oh, I saw you looking
No,
through it. That
I
you-
just didn't have the
All right, we
March
have a motion
meeting
and a
minutes.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
We got them?
Move
Oh,
on
that's right, I
to
wasn't here. That's right, I wouldn't have put them anyway.
number 4, please.
Thrown out because-
Oh. Oh, yes, we can do that. That's a good idea. Let me get down through the list. Item number 6, for the Land Development Code text amendment, which is prohibited uses in the Midtown redevelopment area. That's being continued to the May meeting. Yeah, I didn't know what Jim was saying.
Who wants to speak to it?
Well,
Sorry, Chairman.
what-
Before it got continued, I wanted the opportunity to speak.
Okay.
Okay, so we're, all right.
Well, should I look first? All right, is that all right if he comes forward? Okay, Jim, why don't you come?
Chairman and board members, good evening. I'm Jim Morris, 420 South Nova Road. I'm here on behalf of a property owner named Daytona Beach Holdings, LLC. They own the old Daytona Lincoln Mercury property as well as the old Quincy's restaurant, which is just to the north of that. They presently have both parcels under contract to sell. The Quincy's piece would be sold to a company called O'Reilly Auto Parts. It's more of a Midwest and Western company. It's a Fortune 500 company. And their intention for this particular property is to place what they refer to as a hub store. Their business model is they build a more significant store and then they'll have other stores within the county, but the hub store is really the center of how they do business. In the instance of the Lincoln Mercury property, Gib Danahauer, who is the local Toyota dealer, intends to buy that property and redevelop it. In the case of both properties, before anyone can use that land, they are forced to come into compliance with city code and meet your various standards. And in both instances, it's a reinvestment in the community. It's also additional employment opportunities. I'm told by O'Reilly that they probably would employ between 30 and 40 people at their business. Danahauer's business would be something separate from his current location, which he will maintain. It's my understanding that the city has considered a proposal similar to this one before, and it hasn't been approved. And what's happening now with just the coincidence of the contracts that my client has to sell his properties and some people that want to redevelop and invest in the Midtown area is that it's freezing that action. So while it may not be the time for you to make a final decision, but I want you to know ahead of time the dampening effect that this has on reinvestment and redevelopment in the Midtown area. The Daytona Lincoln Mercury property Maybe it was something else a long time ago. If it was, I don't remember what it was. It is specifically purpose-built and used for automotive purposes. And it's important to you as a city to understand that because there's a law in Florida known as the Burt Harris Act. And the city may have an obligation to compensate for a loss in value when you take someone's uses away pursuant to zoning. And I'm not saying that's the claim now, but I want you to be aware of that component of it so that you fully understand it. And I didn't attend the Midtown Board meeting. This came up before my client knew about it and the decision had been made. And it's my understanding that the sale of auto parts was actually added at the Midtown meeting. In other words, it wasn't agended, but it's my understanding it was added in the course of discussion. To that particular question, I would ask you to also consider how is it different if you buy an air filter or window cleaner in a store and walk out in your car and go away, or you buy a hairbrush or a loaf of bread. It's a retail sale. So certainly from the perspective of the outright outlaw of those uses, that's significant. And I would like to remind you too that Spanos, the dealership down here on 92, which has redeveloped and I think done a beautiful job, the old bakery property, those folks are also in this prohibition, not a moratorium, prohibition. So the City Commission previously has rejected the idea. I'm not sure how much of a hearing occurred at the Midtown Board. I know those folks are concerned and they want to see things improve in their community. It's a different argument as to whether or not you improve things in the community by precluding people that would reinvest. And then there's the economic impact to the clients that I represent, as well as the potential economic impact to the city. So it's a complicated question, and it's one that needs to be given consideration instead of an outright ban. If there is going to be a ban, to look at what it is that causes the problem. Is it the little hodgepodge of uses? Because when you look overall along US 92, the old Ford dealership is now a part of Bethune-Cookman. One of the holdouts is the U-Haul dealer. And I have heard, and that's only what I've heard, is that someone had tried to negotiate actually relocating the U-Haul dealer to another location that would be suitable so that the U-Haul property might be incorporated into the Bethune-Cookman plan. So I've heard it. That's all I can say to you about that. But my point is this, that if you want a guy that's there to be cooperative and perhaps move you towards a better plan for the use of the property, and Bethune-Cookman is going across 92 and doing things across 92, and I think Bethune-Cookman is a great corporate citizen, and I have always thought that it looks like a real college in terms of the bricks and the whole motif. And I actually worked on construction of some of the dorms way back. So you've got Bethune-Cookman there, you've got some larger uses, which was the old Pontiac dealership that was then Byrriders, and it's somebody else. But the point is, it's a large purpose-built piece of property. That property, too, would be included in this prohibition. I only represent Daytona Lincoln Mercury and Quincy's same owner. I just ask you to be very carefully give consideration to this issue as you go through. I'll be back in touch with you, and I'm here tonight to register the objections because from the perspective of the property owner, I've advised him we need to let it be known at every point in the road of our intention to resist. I've filed applications with the city, which the city has rejected under some theories that I'll take up with the city attorney's office. But the point is, there is significant impact to everybody involved in this, and none of it's good under the current proposal. Thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, or we just go to the vote for the continuance?
Motion to continue Land Development Code text amendment, prohibited uses in the Midtown redevelopment area, DEB 2012-018, to the May 24th, 2012 Planning Board meeting. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. It will be continued. Thank you. Well, yes, and then the next one we're going to continue will be number 10, and that's the rezoning of the planned commercial development on Tarragona shops, and that was continued from January. They asked for this month, but then they asked again, did they not? And there was a reason for that.
the applicant submitted a letter asking for this to be postponed until the city commission acts on the land use, which hasn't happened, but it is now scheduled to be done at the next city commission meeting, so we may have an answer then. But originally, they had talked about making some modifications once they saw what the commission did before they went forward,
Right.
which we haven't received.
Is there anything you'd like to say, or can we just go ahead?
I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay. Are there any questions? Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
Motion to continue rezoning Planned Commercial Development, Tarragona Shops, DEV 2011-088 to the July 26, 2012 Planning Board meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, number 11 is the Land Development Code Text Amendment for Internet Cafes. That was continued from March, and I guess staff is requesting a continuance to the May Planning Board meeting.
I do have one question of staff on this. It was from March to this month. Will May be enough time to deal with what I don't know internally what you're dealing with? Would June be better? Because I know it's really only 2 weeks when we do this, so that would be my only...
We have quite a bit of work left to do on this. I know Marie is gone for a week or more.
Well, that's why, because she's going to be out of the country.
Right. I mean, two months would give us more time to prepare. I mean, I think the issues are there's several departments all involved with this that all need to be
Okay.
part of that. So 2
Okay.
months would be fine.
June would be good? Would July be? I mean, we just did one to July.
I think-
What would
I think
work for you?
Two months is,
Okay.
we'll be ready. We can be ready in June.
Okay, then I'll take a motion to move it to
June.
June. We're going to June? To the June meeting. So I'll take a motion to move to the June meeting.
Motion to continue Land Development Code Text Amendment and Internet Cafes, DEV 2012-023 to the June 2012 Planning Board meeting.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Go now to the new items. And number 4, please.
Item number 4, small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, Family Dollar, Mason Avenue, DEV 2012-012.
Good evening, thank you. Tom White, now our Planning Division. This is a request by Jeffrey Lamberson, Twin Rivers Capital, on behalf of First Coast Energy, Karen Gaynor, and Betty Cade Norwood, to approve a small-scale plan amendment changing the future land use designation from Level 1 residential to retail for a .29 acre parcel of land located at 800 Derbyshire Road and 815 Essex Road, and adding a new policy and issue to Neighborhood K of the future land use element in the comp plan that describes the location, acreage of the entire site, currently comprised of 3 lots, and restricts permissible land uses to retail only. Twin Rivers is interested in developing a Family Dollar store on the vacant lot on Mason Avenue between Derbyshire and Essex. The site constraints of the size relative to the building and the stormwater and facility utilities isn't large enough, so what the applicant would like to do is purchase the properties, the 2 single-family homes behind this vacant lot on Mason, and develop the store. The vacant lot is correct for the land use and the zoning, but the 2 single-family lots are not correct for the land use or the zoning. So we have a rezoning application that'll be presented in a minute also that corresponds with this. A second caveat of this application is to add a Neighborhood K issue policy that specifically describes the location of these parcels and restricts future development on the combined site to retail only. Usually when we go through these slides, we start kind of the big picture and work our way down to the site. In this case, I think it might be helpful if any of the adjoining property owners are here, and also for the applicant to hear what kind of mechanism we're using. I'm going to start at the small scale. So this slide shows the vacant parcel on Mason. Spans the full block between Derbyshire and Essex. And then it doesn't have an address. The two residential lots behind it, 815 and 800, are labeled there. There are 3 separate lots, 3 separate owners currently. So the first part of this application is to consider changing the land use designation, the future land use designation for those 2 single-family lots that are shaded with the dark gray. After that's done, the property owner would combine all 3 into one lot, which would end up being 0.866 acres. And what we're doing is we're adding a map note so that future staff members and property owners, when they come in for a review, will have an avenue to develop the site that sets the restrictions. It's a little different way of doing things, but it's allowed under a fairly recent 2011 reform to some growth management laws that allows us to do this under a small scale process. Okay, so back to the diagram. We will we'll describe the acreage in the site in a neighborhood policy, and then we'll go on to say what retail types of uses would be allowed in the retail category, rather than just saying any retail is fine. So we'll just take these one step at a time. There's really just two main parts. This is the home at 815 Essex. Then we'll go to the other house. In both cases, they're bound by the other two properties that are adjacent are part of this 3-parcel complex. So, kind of be aware of that. On the north side, you have single family. South side is vacant, but it's part of this application. The east side, it's single family, also part of this application. And on the west side of 815 Essex, a single family. This is a picture of the other house at 800 Derbyshire. To the north is single family. To the south is vacant. It's part of this application. To the east, it's the shopping center. And to the west is part of this application also. Okay, now these are more familiar maps that you see each meeting. And it just kind of pans out from there so that you can see the depth of the retail along Mason, and to some degree the shallow nature of the retail for this site in comparison to the shopping center to the east. The proposed future land use again is retail, but with a caveat of what type of retail staff recommends. The current zoning, which we'll get to on the next item, the current zoning for these 2 parcels we're talking about first are R1A single-family residential. Proposed zoning will be business automotive. Now, business automotive does allow a lot of uses, but since the comprehensive plan has a hierarchy, if it isn't an allowed use in the comp plan, then they can't use that development type that's in the BA. So that, in effect, restricts the property more than just the BA. You're familiar with the neighborhood policies in the comprehensive plan. This is in neighborhood K. And we're going to write an issue and a policy in the comprehensive plan land use element under neighborhood K's area to describe the acreage and the size and the restrictions of this lot. So it's easier to find. Part of this land use proposed change obviously is to review the impact to infrastructure, water, sewer, traffic, and so on. Obviously, there's going to be an increase when you're going from residential to retail. It will increase the demands for water and sewer services, as well as traffic. As far as increase in water and sewer, it'll increase it by 3,093 gallons per day. This staff did an initial review of the traffic generation, and upon request for trip generation calculations by the City of Daytona Beach Technical Review Team, more detailed trip generation analysis was conducted by Zev Cohen, and it concluded that the change in land uses will generate 461 average daily trips and 40 peak hour two-way trips, which does not exceed the 1,000 or more two-way trips, nor 100 or more peak hour two-way trips on a weekday, thus not requiring a full traffic impact analysis. The TRT found the impact to water and sewer and traffic acceptable. We also look at policies that are already in the comprehensive plan when we're evaluating proposed amendments to land uses or new policies. Obviously, we're concerned with encroaching into an established neighborhood, and there's a policy that addresses that, which reads, Future Land Use Element Policy 2.2.2. Through the rezoning and plan review process, the city shall protect residential neighborhoods from the encroachment of incompatible land uses. The type of protection may include land use transition areas, urban design standards, and preventing the location of a particular land use near a residential area depending upon the intensity of the non-residential use. And that would be a concern with this land use change if it wasn't for the applicant voluntarily asked to be restricted to retail only. We added detail to that so that we reduce the impact to the single family to the north of these two sites. Ordinarily, several types of development could be allowed in a retail land use designation that could be incompatible to adjacent residential development. But with the long laundry list of restrictions, we think that will help. Another and final neighborhood policy that we looked at, the two residential parcels are located in neighborhood K, as I said, and there's an issue that says, it's labeled D, Mason Avenue has developed into an unsightly commercial strip. This parcel, for at least the last 10 years, has been cleared, and before that, understand it remained vacant as a former gas station for years, which didn't improve the appearance. So that was probably within this unsightly commercial strip category. The city adopted commercial design guidelines in September 2011, which you all had a part in, and it's already working well for us. The guidelines set forth architectural design standards in the treatment of walls and roofs visible from major city thoroughfares, which is Mason Avenue is. Since the project is contemplated by the developer to proceed through the conventional zoning permitting process, the project will be required to comply with all the design standards in the guidelines, as opposed to a PD that they might kind of write their way out of. So development of an attractive building in compliance with required landscaping on the undeveloped Mason Avenue site, facilitated through the site's expansion, should help improve the unsightly commercial strip, Neighborhood K's Issue D, and Policy 1 references. Okay, so that takes care of the land use part. To describe the parcel, then the reason we have to do this is to add a map note, as I said, and one way to do it, and you've all seen this done before, is whether it's man-made feature or acreage or something like that. In this case, it's very convenient because it's a full block. So we're adding a new issue that reads, and I won't read the full policy because it's about half a page, but the issue says, in 2012, the city processed a small-scale comp plan amendment to change the future land use map designation from level 1 residential to retail for two parcels abutting a third parcel that has 200 feet of frontage on Mason Avenue between Essex Road and Derbyshire Road. So that isolates, that's the only place in town, of course, that meets that description. It has the effect of requiring that someone combine all 3 lots together before they can achieve that acreage that's specified in the following policy. But it also ties it to, well, the policy itself below gives the frontages of the 3 parcels, the 3 frontage roads. I'll just read the lead-in into the policy, and if there's questions, I can go over it. First, just describes the acreage. Policy 1, the 0.886 acre parcel having 200 feet frontage on Mason, 186 feet on Derbyshire, and 200 feet on Essex shall be restricted to permit retail development only, which shall allow only business activity providing retail convenience goods. That doesn't mean convenience stores. It's kind of a preface to the following list. Such uses include, and then it has the long list. So whether or not, I don't know if the applicant has read through this list. We intentionally didn't reference a zoning category because that is always subject to change, and we knew it would be better just to have a long list in here. So that is that's the list we can go through. I've got it up on the screen if members of the audience want to have us go through it. Let me go back. Okay, that concludes the overall presentation, but finally the staff recommendation. With the exception of meeting approval of the proposed text amendment in Part 2, staff finds that the requested small-scale amendment is consistent with the comp plan, does not represent urban sprawl, and city has available capacity to serve the increased demand on available water, sewer, and traffic. The Planning Division staff only recommends approval of the map amendment for the 2 residential parcels if the map note is simultaneously approved, and as a condition of approval, the 3 lots are combined into 1. And the Part 2 part of this is the text amendment. Planning staff recommends approval on the policy issue of the proposed new Neighborhood K issue and policy. And to remind you, a majority vote of the planning board members present and voting are required to recommend approval of this policy matter to the city commission. Sorry that was so long. It felt long, but it's just layering a few tools onto this one project. Now, if I miss something, the applicant can come up and speak or address, and I'll take questions whenever you.
Are there any questions of staff? Yes.
I got a number of comments, but my question is, have we ever done in the neighborhood policy, a new issue in a new neighborhood policy specifically designed toward one plot that we're working with? Have we done this before?
There are several in there. I think more importantly, unless we do that, we would not be considered a small-scale amendment. Generally, and up until last year, if you changed the text in the plan, you were automatically large-scale. That exemption that happened in 2011 said that if the map note that you're including only applies to one property, it can be done as a small scale.
All right. So it's to accommodate a more quickly moving
It's more
plan
accelerated
amendment.
as a small scale, yes.
So we have not. This is not something that we do. I never recall seeing this before.
We have some neighborhood policies that only apply to one property in comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Haven't done one in a while, I don't think.
Are there any? Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is Twin Rivers Capital LLC, who is on behalf of First Coast Energy, I imagine First Coast Energy actually owns this LLP, are they the authorized agents for all 3 properties?
Yes, we have 3 notarized authorized agent forms, and so.
I just
yes.
wanted to make sure of that. And then do you have any idea, and maybe the applicant could answer this better, but why there is a matter of 1,200 average daily trip disparity in the same manual that was used. They picked, obviously, freestanding discount. You picked specialty retail. Is there, and that's a significant difference?
Would you like to?
Okay, well, no, I'll wait for the applicant then, because
Okay.
I have another question. The neighborhood meeting that you referenced on page 11, do you have any idea if they've had one? As of this date, you had said when you wrote this, April 19th, they had not.
They still have not had that meeting.
Okay, and their application, you'd said when you received their application, you would strongly encourage them to do that. When did you receive their application for this?
I believe it was mid-February.
Okay, so a couple months ago.
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions of staff? Thank you very much. Can we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dwight Durant with Zev Cohen & Associates, 300 Interchange Boulevard in Ormond Beach, Florida. Also with me is Malia Russell from our staff. She was the project engineer, and Lauren Collins from Twin Rivers. Tom was pretty comprehensive in his description. I can add more to it if you wish, or I can begin to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions of the applicant?
Trip generation.
Trip generation, there's several trip generations that you do. Number one, we have a small-scale comp plan, and we have to look at the most intense development that could be on the property in its current condition and in its proposed condition. So we did that. And then we have the zoning issued, where we do that based upon the range that goes in the zoning documents. And then we have the site plan, where we do it on the actual, what's proposed to go out there and what exists out there now. Really what exists now are two homes, so there's not a lot of trip generation there. So you have 6 figures that are floating all around. We used what we thought was the most accurate with the proposed neighborhood retail use instead of a specialty shop, which typically you see in strip centers, or they're usually a lot smaller than an 8,000 square foot building. We didn't feel that that was the appropriate, but we looked at all of those, and we met with the traffic engineer and satisfied all of his concerns.
Okay. Would you have any idea what the other area Family Dollar stores, what their actual trips are, since we actually have these stores here?
Yes, ma'am. That's the ones that we used in our site plan development.
Well, we don't have site plan in front of us, so I'm just curious as to actual traffic.
We've done several Family Dollars. We just completed one in Deltona and also in DeLand, and their trip generations are somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 to 600 trips per day.
Okay. And my other question, neighborhood meeting. Why have you not done that?
We've attempted to. The logistics of it, we reached out to a neighborhood. We went through staff to get a name of what we felt was a neighborhood leader. I can't recall the name now, but they were sick, they were ill, and then we just missed their previous meeting. So we're trying to get on their next meeting when they have one, and we've also reached out to the commission side to try to help us put that together. But we propose to have one before the next commission meeting.
Okay, but if this if this passes, this is already basically done.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, obvious. So
right.
I
It's
just want to make sure that, did you send letters? Did you get any addresses?
We've called and sent emails. We sent emails
No,
to
I
begin
mean
with.
to the actual people who live there, not
No,
just
we
your
want to meet with.
contact.
I'm sorry. We want to meet with them personally and present plans and everything instead of a mail
But
out
other
of a
than
letter.
going through whatever this one person is, you haven't actually. Letters had to go out saying this is a rezoning, so you didn't
yes.
follow that up in any way.
No.
Directly
No.
to the
We're
people
trying
who
to go
live there.
through the channels that have been recommended to us.
Okay.
But we have a long way to go with these particular processes, because we have to go to City Commission, I believe, twice, and we have to go to Growth Management, which will take us well into July. So we have.
I agree,
Okay,
but
so-
this right here is doing neighborhood encroachment.
Yes, ma'am.
This right here.
That's why,
Before all we get to all the rest, that right there is just a major impact. So that's just where I'm coming from. That's all. I just wanted to know what efforts are made.
and we will do
Neighbors
that. That's
would
what-
have gotten mail notice through the rezoning, so.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't hear what you say. What'd you say?
The rezoning, one of those notice requirements is mail notice. So the small-scale comp plan didn't have that. It was a newspaper ad, but the rezoning would have went to the neighbors specifically.
But that would have just been for the rezoning. That would not have been for, we're changing the policy in your neighborhood to allow this encroachment. Thank you.
Was there a posting of the rezoning in the neighborhood? I didn't go by, I didn't see.
It's required
Yeah, there was one
under
on the
the
lot
notice
itself.
requirement.
Oh,
There's
okay.
one on the lot, there's,
I think, well, there was one in the middle of the lot, it looked like to me, and then there was one on the side, and somebody had knocked it down, it was on the other side of the street.
Yeah, but the rezoning would be on the two single-family lots. Because nothing's happening with the larger lot.
Well, I don't know what, yeah, I couldn't see the sign, it was a little bit away from me, but there was one. And there was one on the side, too. On the other side of the street.
The code requirement for the sign would be only on the two lots.
The
in the
two,
north.
yeah, because that's the only rezoning going on.
Right. I don't know where they posted it. That's all.
well, there were empty sticks on each of those lots. There were missing signs on the single-family
But
homes.
I think there was a sign across the street.
Right.
On the ground, I
Yeah,
believe.
I saw that.
Yeah, Dennis Merzak, planner with the city. Yeah, we did have them post on each of the individual residential properties, and then we also had them post on fronting Mason just for an extra posting. If the signs have been damaged or they're no longer there, we'll have them replaced so that they can be in place for the next meeting, definitely.
Has anyone talked to, rather than just sending the notices, those neighbors in that area? Up front of the property or side by side of the property of your intent to purchase?
What was the question? Have they been noticed?
Have anyone from your company gone in and talked to the neighbors that are adjoining this property?
As of this date, no.
Okay.
Our intention is, that's our office policy, that's what we'll do. We want to meet on their turf,
Yeah.
not ours. We don't want to meet in the city commission chambers. We want to find a church or a local place, but we need the community leaders to help us do that portion of it.
Okay.
That's usually the most effective way to do it.
It's usually the most effective way.
Yes. If it comes down to we can't make those accommodations here within the next month, then we'll probably notice them by mail and also leave some door hangers just to where we don't lose anybody and anybody that would be interested. And then we will go through staff to make sure they're aware they're welcome to attend, and then they can notify the various boards where they can attend as well.
All that is great. I do know for a fact, since I do live in the neighborhood across from there, personal contact has to be made if you're going to do something with a business right there on that corner. And, of course, to obtain that. I know the letters are good, and you have procedures to follow.
Right. The letter will be for the purpose of announcing the meeting to describe the project. I would not make an attempt to try to describe the project by the letter. I agree with you 100%. We have to talk it through. I have to hear what their conditions or what their concerns are in order to answer their questions. So that will happen.
All right.
I think this is an excellent project,
It is.
but until there's communication with the neighbors in that area, I don't think we should make any type of move on this. I really think it should be postponed until the next meeting, giving them an opportunity to meet with the individuals that live in that area.
I would,
If I'm-
actually, I would support that. I did go knock on doors just to ask if anyone had knocked on doors tonight before coming here. And I am concerned and all I asked was, would you like to have a meeting before a project happens? Essex, when you look at Essex has major traffic problems already. There are speed tables that are on it. There are kids, there are school buses that go through there. There are the immediate neighbors are concerned with, they haven't seen a site plan, they don't know lighting, they don't know driveways, there's nothing. And I think notice and leaving door hangers is great, but in the last 2 months, it should have been done before tonight. Doing this tonight is already setting that in motion. So it's like, what do you do after the horse gets out? You lock the barn door. I think that's what we're looking at here. And I'd rather have you deal with the horse while it's in the barn. And I'm not calling anyone who lives there a horse. It's just a metaphor.
If I could respond, we're on a. I understand your concerns. I've just gone through 2 public hearing processes in the city of Ormond Beach that went very well as a result. So I know what it takes to go through a public information process, and we will do that. Our problem is our project has been stretched out such that it's not feasible to go any further past July. We've already stretched it past when we need it in June. So we're going to be sitting around waiting on the things to come back from the Growth Management Commission. So that pinches us very, very dearly, and I'm not sure the project will survive. This project has been trying to go on for 2 years, not with Capital Rivers, but with other folks in advance, and it has all died due to different reasons. We've been diligent in trying to put this together through no fault of our own. We've been unresponded to. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but we have made the contacts, and I know the ramifications of short-circuiting that system. You have to pick a community leader to help you navigate through that process. If we just go announcing what we're going to do and where you need to be and what time you need to be there, then it doesn't work. You have to go from the inside out. And I need somebody to carry that torch for me to go in and have that. And at that point in time, my intentions are not to notify anybody of what we're proposing to do. It's to notify them that we're going to have a public information meeting to where they can come and see everything that goes. And this will occur well in advance of the city commission meetings, 2 of them, and before it goes to Growth Commission. So I'm not trying to short-circuit any process whatsoever, but that's the process here at the City of Daytona Beach. We go through these public hearings, and we've even gone so far as to make sure that we're going to be prepared for this meeting is to do the site plan. We have architectural plans. We have engineering plans. We know what the buffers are. We know where the walls are going to go. We know the stormwater will work. We've even gotten all of our permits in advance of this because we don't want to go in not being able to answer anybody's question that asks a question. So we're well prepared. All I need is a date, but I can't afford to come back and start the process all over again. So I'd like a little latitude. If you can give me that latitude, I guarantee you'll be happy with the success.
Okay. How many written notices were delivered by mail to the area?
Close to 90.
And so those physically went to the people's house, and then there wasn't any response back to you all from the notices?
We have not been contacted with any adverse comments about the project at all.
Those notices would have been from the city for the rezoning, correct?
That's correct.
Not from you. You have sent out no notices.
We're responsible for putting it together,
The applicant
and we
sends them.
send them out.
They send
Okay,
us
but
a
there's
letter.
still, it's about the public hearings. It's about, this is the planning board, this is the commission, it's these public hearings. That's the notice we're talking about, where it puts them all.
Notice is generally a form letter saying there's a public hearing.
Okay.
At planning board on this night for a reason.
The notice would have
Goes to
done the planning board and the city
It
commission.
goes to the property, I believe usually they do, I assume this one did, and it would have identified both hearings, and also puts in there that if they have questions, they can come in and look in our file or give us a call. Our phone number's on those letters.
So that's the process. We're following the process, and if there's anybody that wants to speak to the project, we'll be taking notes. I'll be glad to meet with them afterwards, but I don't see a lot of people behind me. The neighborhood meeting is not a requirement, but we want to do it as well. So we're following through all of the procedures that have set forth, and we're actually volunteering to go a little bit further. And I'm trying to avoid a delay.
Okay, any other questions of
Just one. If this doesn't happen with the neighborhood leader between now and the commission, what are you going to say at the commission meeting? We tried, but we're sorry?
No, ma'am, I'll delay it then. And it'll jeopardize the project, I guess. But if I can't get it from the inside from out, then I will do the only other way that I know how to do it, and that is to knock on the doors and leave door hangers and spread it through the community and pick the place myself and have it there. So we can force the meeting to occur. I just don't want to do that.
From an obligation standpoint, and this is a question that I want to make sure that I understand. From an obligation standpoint, has the applicant done everything required of them from the city to proceed in what they're doing tonight?
In our current land development code, a neighborhood meeting is not required. The policy has been discussed for some time. It is in draft form in the new land development code where it will be a requirement. And we've informed most applicants of the planning board and city commission desire to have a neighborhood meeting, and strongly encourage it, even though the current code, it's not a requirement.
Well, I would certainly be more comfortable with this if, we had exhausted, I know you're going to have this meeting, if we had exhausted every method to have it. Because this is, I think, as others have said, this is an encroachment no matter how you look at it. And the traffic, I know just right there on Mason and Derbyshire, I don't know what the data is, but I see accidents there all the time. And I know that this project would increase that. And again, that's no fault of yours. But it just seems like it need to be a little bit more done.
Yes, sir, I understand. Just to respond to the traffic, what the traffic reports don't say is the amount of pedestrian traffic that it creates and the lack of cars that are on the road as a result of the pedestrians available. Family Dollars put their stores 1 mile apart as a result of the family traffic or the pedestrian traffic that they pick up. So it is truly, indeed, a neighborhood store, and we expect the walk-in traffic to occur, and we've accommodated our site plan, or we've designed our site plan to accommodate that. So I fully expect it's just like if you move a drugstore on the other side of the interstate, you're not creating traffic over there, you're preventing traffic from going across because now the people don't have to use that section of the road.
That's actually where I agree on this. I think this project could possibly be helpful in that sense, is that it would give a place where people could walk and get reasonably priced goods. And so that's the side that I do see, that I actually like. But no, this is a tough one, sir.
I invite you to come to the meeting. If this project isn't going to be well received, it's not going forward.
Yeah, I guess the reason, in another sense, is that I think if we, not that you haven't gone through the proper channels, I guess technically you have gone through the proper channels. It's just that if this goes up and nobody knows about it, it's going to be more painful for you when you start construction or whatever it is. And that's why I think it would be advantageous for everybody, all the parties involved, if everything was done prior to construction, because this happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
People, he didn't know about it. What are they doing? And then all of a sudden, it's madness. And that's what I would like to see prevented. A lot of times, if you do things early on, some of those things can be. I know you have.
I understand.
I know you have experience with that.
I've got 25 years experience, and that will not happen on my watch.
Okay.
I guarantee you that.
Yes.
I'm in favor of all neighborhood meetings, but you can't force them. And if you send out 90 notices, and out of 90 homes, out of 90, say 75 got them. And the neighborhood's going to talk among themselves and say, it's going to be rezoning, and I'm sure that it's out there that it's going to be a dollar store. But there wasn't any objection from any of those people that got the notices to the city that they got a call. Mm-hmm. There wasn't any objection from, unless maybe there may be somebody in the audience that can shed some light on. But the notice was posted with telephone numbers and city hall numbers, and you can't force a community meeting. You can offer it and hope that, you know, that people will come. And then just like Mr. Fishback, this is actually going to be a neighborhood grocery store to where that people can walk to and get stuff, to where we've always had a problem. That's why we're talking the Midtown thing, the fast food places and those kind of establishments. This is like a neighborhood grocery store that I would think that the neighbors would welcome, to where they could walk and get a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread or whatever else things that they needed without getting in their car and having to drive, you know, someplace. So I think, and the stores like the Port Orange, it has the dollar store, you know, on Clyde Morris. It's very well done. It's nice. The other ones, the new ones that have gone in, are very nice and complement the neighborhoods that they go into.
My turn? My 2 cents, please. I agree that, you know, people have been notified. However, there's a reason why we're changing the code. There was a reason why it's a change, because when people get a notice from the city or federal government or whatever, it's a little intimidating. They don't really understand it. But when you get an invitation from your pastor or your neighbor down the block that is kind of a community organizer, it's less intimidating. They're going to be part of the process then. And I really think that we should give them the opportunity to do that. I'm sorry that the timeline has worked out the way it has. And I know you've made efforts. But we really need to give them the opportunity to do that. I think overall in the bigger picture, they're going to embrace this, like he says. But they need to be part of the process to get there to embrace it. So I really have reservations myself of just setting this in motion. You don't want to set the tone where you have people that, you know, they're the ultimate hypocrites. I don't want to see it coming, but I don't like the dirty parking lot and the dust and the weeds that are there now. But they need to be part of the process. So I really think that should happen before we set this forward.
My life would be so much easier if that would happen that way. I would not have to be putting my career success on the line and my word and everything else. But what I'm saying is that the sellers of the property have given the deadline to the buyers. The deadline has already been extended one time, and they've said it will not be extended again. And that puts my client in the position of having to buy the property without having the approvals through the Growth Management Commission, which is a far more difficult board than anything we'll see at a local level. And so there's a risk that it will not happen. And I know how this particular store can help this community. It's direly needed. It'll be a brand new, fresh store that goes right there. And I would not be up here pleading for this if I didn't think this was going to work. And if it doesn't work, it won't work. But what you're asking me to do, I am going to do. Unfortunately, it will just occur after this meeting. But I welcome everybody in this room to come to that meeting and watch the process occur. It just goes into jeopardy. They will have to go back with their attorneys and ask for an extension, because in today's day and age, you just don't close on a piece of property. You don't get bank loans and everything else. So the staff has worked very, very hard with us to streamline the process all through there. The only hiccup that we've had is a non-responsiveness from the community. And I don't know if that's because they are not concerned about it or they want it. Usually most people come and when they speak, it's against something. They don't come out and speak for it. Silence is good in my business. So that's about all I can say on it. I really am pleading with y'all to give me some latitude to push this along.
Could I ask one more question here? And it went, I don't know if you wrote it, the asking for silence. The notice that went out, is it any different from notices that have gone out in the past? I mean, did it say, we're proposing a Family Dollar store that will encroach back into your neighborhood or actually needs to rezone part of the residential property of your neighborhood, and will come back and we would like, you know, these are the public meeting dates when you can come speak to this issue? Or did it just simply say, a rezoning is proposed on lot such and such, at such and such, and these are the public meeting dates? It's a whole different ball of wax what that letter is.
To answer your question, it's the second way.
The second way.
That's,
I thought it, yeah.
We don't control what the words say in the advertisement.
Okay.
We don't control what goes in the paper. We don't control what goes,
yes, thank
through
you.
that portion of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, but if you said it was going to be a banner and then the zoning was there's going to be something else. That could be a bigger problem as saying you told me that this is what it's going to be.
You could have said
It's being
it.
rezoned.
You could have said it's going to be a retail use that's going to be into the neighborhood that requires rezoning to residential lots. It's, I mean, obviously we have a difference of opinion, but I have read those letters. They're not friendly, and if you don't deal with this kind of stuff on a regular basis, they're also not understandable to the average person.
This is a remark. What I would add to that is that the city is contemplating putting that in their code. And when they do, those letters will change. Those letters will state that part, that this will occur, that will occur. That process doesn't, I don't have the ability to change that and follow a procedure and a code that's not in place. I can only follow what's given to me currently. And so we're voluntarily adding to that, trying to make lemonade out of lemons here. So
no problem.
For me, I definitely see how important it is to communicate with the community. I really do. On the other hand, if an applicant follows procedure and the city says this is what it takes to get to this point, to have it brought before the planning board, I will not vote in favor of a continuance because I feel that this applicant has done everything that the city has required him to do. They're here tonight, and I cannot vote for a continuance on just something that we feel it should be that way, and at one point going forward, it will be that way. And when it's that way, they will be required to go through those steps. But today, it's not a requirement. And I will not vote for a continuance because it's not a requirement, and the applicant has done everything that the city has told him to do.
Not to be devil's advocate, would you have said the same thing if Holub Tarragona Shop had never met with Highlands?
What else? I'm sorry?
Would you have said the same thing if Paul Holub Tarragona Shops had never met with Highlands?
I would have said the same thing if an applicant came before us and they did everything that the city has required them to do. I would say exactly what I'm saying right now.
Okay, so you
got to be.
So the city's strongly encouraging the developer to conduct a neighborhood meeting is not a requirement for you because it's not written in the land. I just want to be really clear. Since it's not written in the land development code, but since staff deals with this all the time, and they even write in our staff report that they strongly encourage them 10 weeks ago to meet with the neighborhood.
Again, I'll go back to my comment.
Okay.
If it's not a requirement, then yes, I agree, it should be a requirement. But I'm just saying I will not vote for continuance because the applicant has done everything that the city requires them to do.
And let me say, I like the project. It's not about the project.
Whoa.
Okay. Whether I like it or not, I can't deny someone they did everything the city requires.
Okay.
I can't.
I don't think they put forth it. I don't think the proper effort was put into it. Just dropping that one letter is not sufficient. Not because of the area, but because nothing was done out of the ordinary. If you want this project and in 10 weeks, one letter was dropped, not one door was knocked on, I just don't think at this point, I'm not comfortable doing this without the neighborhood being aware. That letter, as you said, is very impersonal. It does not tell what's going on, and so many times this happens in our city. People just aren't aware, and we do have individuals here from that community. I don't know if they want to speak, but I think we should hear from them also, and then we need to vote on this. Let's move the point. We've had enough discussion.
No, yes,
You're in charge.
All right, any other questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience like to speak in favor of this issue?
John Nicholson, 413 North Granbury Avenue. This is one of the properties that have been vacant for years. We have them on the beach side. There's several properties near my house. When they're vacant for 20, 25 years, it's a long, long time. These people have been trying to do this for 2 years, they're saying, all right? 2 years is a long time to go through a project. They've done everything they've been required to do. City staff said we strongly recommend, because we are going to in the future, at some future date, change our regulations, but we strongly recommend now that you contact the residents. They tried that. It didn't go through. It's not that they just sent out the letters and did nothing else. They did try something else. It did not come to fruition. They've done everything they've been required to do. The residents were notified not only by a letter, but by a poster in the yard and also on Mason. So on 3 sides, they were notified that this was going to change. It was something going in. Most people are curious when something pops up in their neighborhood like that. These bright orange fluorescent colors are very noticeable. They want to know what's going on. They will ask. You send out 90 notices, even if 75 get through, someone's going to tell a neighbor what's going on, especially if you live across the street. You will call up, if worst case scenario, and say, what's going to happen? What are they putting there? Somebody's going to ask. Out of 90 people, somebody's going to be curious enough to ask. All right? When it happened in my neighborhood, something pops up, you're darn tootin' that the word gets around. My neighbors come to me and they say, what are they doing? All right? They want to know. So it's not the idea that they don't know that something's coming. They know something's coming. There was a gas station, an ugly gas. Well, it was nice years ago. Before they tore it down, there was garbage behind it, next to the neighbors. They put the tires there and the oil drums, and it really was unsightly. Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you to make sure that it's an attractive building and nothing like that goes between the neighbors. Because once you do that, these things come in, they have a habit of putting dumpsters there and trash and whatnot. The neighbors deserve more. They had a worse case scenario. I'm asking for a better case scenario. But I'm asking you to allow this to go through. I think the neighbors can come forth in the future and say, listen, we don't like where the driveway is, we want trees, we want a better wall. Those things, they know that something's coming. It's going one house into the neighborhood, which really does just balance out the BA area from across the street. It makes a great square out of it. So the neighbors are not going to really be impacted, because people coming from the neighborhood are going to walk. Anybody on Derbyshire is already on Derbyshire if they turn in. If they're on Mason, they're already on Mason when they turn in. It's not going to affect the neighborhood because there are 2 major intersections that people will use to get to this location. So it's not really affecting the neighborhood, except for the fact that people can walk to this location. And I think it's something that they would prefer. But if we go forward, there is still 3 more locations that they can discuss. People have a tendency not to go out. I'm sorry, we tried it. Remember the football fields at Cypress? I went to those football games and I told everybody there are 400 kids, and they have 400, 800 parents. You're going to lose your football field when they redo Cypress Gym. And we had 3 people come to the city commission out of those 400. So don't expect a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak in favor? Anyone like to speak against? I'm sorry?
He just he raised his hand.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Willie Mitchell, and I live at 819 Essex Road. My concern is, when the surveys came by and did this survey back in December, they put up stakes, I say, within 2.5, 3 feet of my boundary line. So, in other words, if they put it up where the stakes are, my air conditioner itself gonna have to be moved. And I'm concerned because it's coming that close to my property line. Yes, we received 1 letter, that's all we received. And if they do have a neighborhood meeting, I would surely be there because I am affected more than anyone else. No one else in the 3 houses in that square, no one else lives in neither one of them. I'm the only one that's still there. That's why I am affected. Thank you very much.
Why would it be any closer to the property line? I guess I don't understand. Now, why is because there's a property line, is there not? Why could they be any closer to you than what's there now? Well, I'm just saying there's a property line, and I wonder how they can get any closer to you than the property line, which is.
No, the original property line.
Could you come back
Come to the microphone.
The original property line is more than 4.5 feet from where my hedges are. and from where my air conditioner is. But when the guy came and did some survey from the corner out on the street to the back corner, he started off like 16 to 18 inches, and by the time he got to the backyard, it was 3 feet on within the boundaries. My property line running here, and he was within there on the property line. I don't know what the purpose was. He didn't say nothing when he did the survey. I didn't say nothing. No one else said anything until I got the letter last week about this meeting tonight.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ask him a question?
Would you, oh, I'm sorry, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, did you know that the purpose was for a Dollar General store?
Last week they put the sign up, yes. Before then, I had heard, yes. But like I say, I hadn't received any input about it. I hadn't heard anything about it. It's just neighborhoods talking, like you say. Right. So when I saw the sign up, then like I say, last week I got this letter, so yes, I was concerned, so that's why I'm here tonight.
So
Okay.
the neighborhood was discussing that a Dollar General was going
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, would you respond to that?
Yes.
How can you be closer?
Actually, I can
We had, obviously, the 3 sites that we were working on surveyed, and we also surveyed the adjacent properties because we wanted to make sure we were not encroaching or causing any adverse conditions for them. If I heard him correctly, it was the 819. And the air conditioning system is shown on our survey, and just basing on looking at the scale, it's well over 5 feet from the property line. So the survey stakes may have been an offset. A lot of times the surveyors will put an offset out there instead of right on the line because of trees or bushes or whatever.
The property
the case.
line is not any closer than it is right
No.
now. In fact, it's a little, well,
Yes, and our proposed improvements will
5
be well within our site. We're leaving a buffer for anything that we do to make sure.
Okay.
And just for the record, we submitted on, our formal submittal was on March 14th, and that is at the time we were asked to put together a public hearing. So it hasn't been as long as you think.
okay, thank you. Anybody else like to speak either for or against?
But I have a question.
Yes.
The gentleman from 819, he said he received the letter last week. Do we have a date on the notice?
It has to
Yeah.
go out 10 days in advance. It probably takes a few days to get there, so
Okay.
getting it a week in advance is probably fairly normal.
But the notice dates and everything were okay?
Yeah, the notice dates were fine, and I just wanted to kind of share with you a little bit of the information that is on these letters that go out. We do have a location map, and it shows the properties that are being rezoned. And then it also has a brief summary of what the request is. Talks about the request and who's making the request to rezone .29 acres of land located at 800 Derbyshire Road and 815 Essex Road, Daytona Beach, from R1A Single Family to BA Business Automotive, to allow the development of the property for a retail use. And then it's got the information on the meeting.
And what you're saying is that's the note that goes out?
This
That's
is
another
this is
one.
the note that went out to the
Hello.
90 people.
Okay.
90 property owners, yes.
Board, what's your pleasure?
Motion we approve.
Discussion.
Oh.
Wait, there's more.
Go ahead, we have some
You're
discussion.
away, and it wasn't me.
Go ahead, John.
Getting away from the notice, I just want to get down to the change of the land use. And I'm very concerned about this is one of the few areas in the city where we have residential use directly abutting retail use. Ordinarily, we have a buffer zone, as on the other side of Mason. We have a mixed use, the RP zoning. You can see it on the future land use map. But it's a buffer zone between residential, as on the other side of Mason, and commercial. And this is one of the situations we have in the city where we have the highest level residential directly abutting retail. And now we have a request to take a piece of our highest level residential and turn it into our actually highest level retail. So I'm, I guess, speaking on behalf of all the residential owners who may or may not have who got the notice but are not here. It seems to me we're encroaching, to use your word, Tracy, we're encroaching into the residential neighborhood. We're taking 2 parcels out of this residential. And the person, actually, the gentleman from 819, he is the next one concerned. The people who, and actually all along Mason, we have a number of residences directly behind the retail, which have been existing there for some time, and they've made adjustments. There is some barriers and some trees and walls built to buffer the neighborhood. Now we're pushing back into the neighborhood, we're taking away residential, and we're going to now have another buffer. I'm sure the site plan would have buffering requirements. And if you remember, we went through the same thing a couple of years ago when we had the BA Automotive along Nova and the residential neighborhood behind it. We had the people existing for many years with the walls and different buffers, and we had a request to increase at one end to take some of the residential property and make it into, actually, it was not into a retail, it was directly into a PUD. And there were all kinds of promises about the buffers, and if you go by there right now, you'll notice that all of those things have not really happened. That's not to say that that's just a comment on situations similar to this that we've encouraged before. But my major concern is we're eating into the residential neighborhood. Next year, the gentleman from 819 will be back to us, or he should be able to be back to us and say, rezone my property. I want to have my property rezoned to commercial. And we're going to eat our way up the neighborhood. We're going to be eating up the residential area. We're cutting into, and actually getting into zoning, it's our highest zoned single-family residential neighborhood. And so we're cutting into that. So I think doing a land use change like this, rezoning the highest level residential to the highest level retail, is a disservice to all the other property owners in the entire neighborhood, or for the entire R1A area. And I think it casts doubt on the people on the other side of A1A who even have the buffer.
A1A.
Who knows? Mason.
A1A.
Mason.
Okay.
Are they safe? My other comment is, with the extensive restrictions that we put in the neighborhood policy and the issue, isn't this a disservice to any future owner of the parcel? It seems to me any future retail owner is now going to be bound by the neighborhood policies that were put into this. If we change the neighborhood policy, the issue in the neighborhood policy, the next owner is going to be bound by that. Or could the next owner come back and request a change in that?
They could request a change to it, but it would live.
But for the moment, it'll live for quite a while, because it would require a comprehensive. So I think we're doing a disservice to both the residential side and to the retail side, but especially the residential side, because our visioning plan always calls for the preservation of neighborhoods, and this is taking little pieces out of our neighborhoods. That's my comment.
Any other comments from staff?
I have just one question of staff. Is BA the only zoning we have for retail?
No, it's not.
Okay.
But the front was already zone BA, which is why we supported that. You will still have without the neighborhood policy, you would still have limitation on the retail. So other uses that might be allowed in BA that are not retail would not be allowed because of the comp plan as it sits today. So this neighborhood policy, the primary reason staff suggesting that is because the land use also allows 40 units per acre residential, which we didn't feel was appropriate, and the applicant was comfortable. I think the applicant probably needs to state for the record that they're comfortable with this neighborhood policy as written. That'd be my only suggestion.
Okay.
We are more than comfortable with it. We are happy to have the restrictions. We know what our proposed use is, and we just feel it's a no-lose situation for the city. The parcel as it is right now, the depth, with all due respect, will not entertain any commercial or retail. It won't work. That's why it's vacant. And we are purchasing those two, instead of cramming our stuff on what is currently zoned and comp planned, we're purchasing 2 more properties to provide adequate buffer for those. We've moved all of our facilities to the front. All of our, anything that has any activity, any noise, any lights, anything. We put the stormwater in the back, we put the trees in the wall. There's far more buffer going to be proposed for that site than exists currently today.
Okay, thank you. Board?
Make a motion we approve the small scale comprehensive plan amendment, Family Dollar, Mason Avenue, development 2012-012.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I think I'm going to have a roll call on it.
Who was that seconded?
That was Matt.
Mr. Bohan?
It's a motion for approval.
Okay. All right, and we'll do roll call. I'll start at the bottom. Ms. Lesage?
No.
Mr. Neal?
No.
Mr. Fishback?
No.
Ms. Benjamin?
No.
Ms. Washington? No. Mr. Hoitzma?
Yes.
Mr. Bohan?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
No.
Ms. Remark?
No.
Mr. Hurt?
Yes.
Okay. This one, 3 to 7, it loses.
Our recommendation for City Commission will be that it was rejected here. And thank you for being here.
Can I respond?
Rezoning.
I'm sorry?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The motion was to approve, and that was denied. Can there be a motion to continue? Because we've got a rezoning that's coming up next.
Would we have to?
The
For the
board would
neighbor-
like to
for the
do a
neighborhood
motion
meeting.
to-
You suggested that, but that didn't fly.
That's the only thing I can take back to them.
Whoever made the motion would have to.
What would be the process now that it's 7 to 3? What would
I think possibly a motion for reconsideration and then do a motion to continue. So
which-
vote on that first one.
But if we didn't do that,
Then
what's-
go
what's-
forward with a requirement for supermajority at City Commission.
And you, the applicant, are asking for a continuance now. So you
Yeah,
would be.
if it's,
Okay.
if it's voted now, no, there's no Family Dollar.
Okay.
If there's a continuance, I have a chance to
Okay.
try to get an extension, and then I'm from what I'm hearing tonight, that maybe the vote would be different if we had confirmation from the neighborhood that they want this.
Yes.
Okay.
And
So-
we're comfortable with the
So I'm
whatever.
hanging on that hope.
Okay.
So-
A motion to reconsider needs to come from the prevailing side, I think. Motion to reconsider small-scale comp plan amendment, Family Dollar Mason, DEV 2012-012.
I have a question before we vote, if it's appropriate, Chair. I guess why is this dead if we vote it down? Can he still appeal to the
It's not
commission?
that you can appeal that and go to the commission if he appeals with a requirement to have a supermajority vote.
Supermajority.
Okay,
Tougher.
yeah, I mean, I
It's
understand
tougher.
that, but it wouldn't be dead. I wouldn't understand.
Well,
He's
maybe
dealing
being
with the timing
realistic.
issue.
Oh, it's timing.
He's dealing
Yeah,
with the
we-
timing issue.
Plus, we have a rezoning coming up, and I think that I need your 100% concurrence on the rezoning.
Right.
Am I correct? And my guess is the vote's not going to be any different on the next item. So that's why I ask.
Okay.
Okay.
Need a second.
So you have a motion, you need a second. Okay.
So now we vote on the motion to reconsider.
I think we need a roll call. Well, yeah, I think we better get a roll call.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
Can't.
Okay.
The motion was brought forward at the recommendation of the applicant.
Okay, you want me to do roll call? Mr. Hurt?
I vote yes, because it was his recommendation.
Ms. Remark?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Bohan?
Yes.
Ms. Washington? Yes. Mr. Hoitzma?
Yes.
Mr. Benjamin?
Yes.
Mr. Fishback?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Ms. Lesage?
Yes.
10-0 for continuance.
No, for reconsider. Now we have to.
For
vote on
oh, that's just to reconsider?
Yeah, now we have to. vote on
Okay, now we
continuance.
vote for continuance,
Can we
okay.
do it on both items?
We have to make the process as long as possible.
Right.
Well, by
Now that I made the motion, I need to make the new motion. Okay, can I also include the second item too, so we can just.
Right. He's talking about the rezoning.
The
for,
motion
and do we
was
have to?
just to reconsider the 3-7, which would have been denial, and that passed unanimously. Now you need a motion for
Continuance.
Continue.
Both items.
I make a motion, we continue small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, $1 million, Mason Avenue, DEB 2012-012, and also item number 5, rezoning Family Dollar, Mason Avenue, development 2012-013 to the next planning board meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
To May.
Thank you.
Number 6. Okay. Item number 7. Site plan approval, Automall 3, Mercedes-Benz dealership, DEV 2012-019.
Here from staff, please.
Thank you. Dennis Merzak, planner with the City of Daytona Beach. The next item is a request to approve a site plan for 12.41 acres of land located at North Tomoka Farms Road to construct 38,850 square feet, Mercedes-Benz dealership and associated improvements. The site is located, again, off Tomoka Farms Road, and I'm sure the IT people will get this going up real soon for me. Located approximately a mile south of LPGA on Tomoka Farms Road. The future land use, interchange commercial, and buffer area passive park. And the zoning of the property is PCD planned commercial development. And go through that. All right. The site location, wanted to point out this is North Tomoka Farms Road over here on the top of the property. Just wanted you to note over here on the left-hand side is where the service road currently is located. That is going to be moved over to the south side of the property over here on the right side, and that's where the new service road is going to be included. You saw part of that with the preliminary plat that came to the board last month for a recommendation to approval to the City Commission, which will be going next month to the City Commission. Got a picture of a site plan up there for you. It's a little difficult to see at this point. I do have copies available for you in your packet. The site plan is showing improvements to the property, including the building, parking, landscaping, all on the west side of the proposed service road. Proposed service road is cutting right across over there. In addition to the landscaping improvements for the main property, there are also the landscape improvements to the service road that would be included with the development. As far as site details, this is part of the 191-acre Automall PCD. The subject parcel is 12.41 acres. As I mentioned, the preliminary plat was approved here by the Planning Board last month. To be recommended approval at the City Commission. It'll be joining the final plat at that time, and the final plat and preliminary plat are going to be up for action at the May 2nd City Commission meeting. The project specifications, again, approximately 35,000 total square feet of building area. It's a single story, provides 333 parking spaces. 28 of those are for customer use, including the handicap parking spaces. The architectural design of the building, I have a color rendering that was provided to us. It's a nice-looking building, kind of typical for what we're seeing over there on the Tomoka Farms Road for the Auto Mall properties. And as far as a recommendation, staff does recommend approval of the site plan for the 34,850 square foot Mercedes-Benz dealership and associated improvements with the following condition. Prior to a final site plan approval, the permit status list must be updated to show receipt of all required permits. Copies of all permits are to be attached to the list and then submitted to the city with the final site plans. A majority vote of the planning board members present and voting is required for approval, and this is the only hearing addressing this application. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Are there any questions of staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience like to speak in favor of this issue?
Good evening, Steve Buswell with Parker Mitchenberg and Associates. We're the project engineer and landscape architect, just to hear any questions that you have.
Any questions of the applicant? No, I think we ran out. Thank you very much. Is there anybody like to speak against? Okay, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve site plan Auto Mall 3, Mercedes-Benz dealership, DEB 2012-019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Number 8.
Number 8. Site plan approval, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University College of Arts and Sciences, DEV 2012-025.
Staff, please.
Great, thank you. Dennis Mrozek, planner with the City of Daytona Beach. This next item is a request to approve a site plan for 3.21 acres of land located at 600 South Clyde Morris Boulevard to construct a 140,000 square foot College of Arts and Sciences building. The property is located at 600 South Clyde Morris Boulevard. The land use, the future land use is schools. The current zoning of the property is M1 local service industry. Just wanted to give you an idea of where the site is going to be located. I've got the buildings that are in the process of being demolished up there. Yeah, I've got those highlighted up there for you. So those buildings are going to be going away. And then the new location of the proposed building is going to be slid over slightly. It's going to be encroaching in part of the parking that's over there, but there's going to be additional parking that's part of the overall improvements for Embry-Riddle. Some photos for you. These are the from the main area. This is some of the buildings that are going to be removed. Along the back side, you can see that they have begun the demolition of these buildings. This is the parking area that's to the west of those buildings, which will be part of the new building. Again, that parking will be moved to another location. And this is a view from where the Arts and Science building is going to be. Across the way, you see the Henderson Welcome Center that was approved last year by the planning board and is well underway for construction, and I'm sure will be opening up hopefully soon. The site plan, again, site plan's a little bit difficult to see at this scale on this screen. This is the loop road that we've become familiar with. The actual building is laid out along here, and this is part of the parking area that is proposed to be removed, and the building will be sitting over there. I do have some architectural elevations for you. This is the front elevation and the rear elevation. As far as project specifications, again, they're 140,000 total square feet, 4-story building. An overall parking plan has been provided in your packet that demonstrates that they do meet the minimum amount of parking. I think they exceed it by about 1,000 for the campus. There is a modern architectural design, the metal-skinned building with the blue glass. Pedestrian connections to the campus are incorporated throughout the design. The building will house classroom and lab facilities, and there is also a rooftop observatory, which I can't wait to go to. The TRT has conducted the review. There are a couple of outstanding reviews that were generated from the Utilities Department. Questions remain as to the availability of the capacity for Lift Station 3. One of the things that they'll need to do prior to a final site plan approval is to verify the availability of the lift station capacity. They're working with the Utilities Department, the applicant, to make sure they have those numbers to make that work. Also, Lift Station 3 is a city lift station, but questions remain as to the easement that's associated with the lift station. Another condition is to verify that Lift Station 3 easement. If there isn't an easement, one will need to be put in, or perhaps the Embry-Riddle could take over the ownership of the lift station. And then the third one is to review the lift station management plan. And in discussing this, it appears that there's a lot of foreign material that ends up heading into the lift station that maybe could be diverted at the source. So they're going to be looking at a plan and possibly reducing the amount of material in the lift station. So that should help everything down line. As far as a recommendation, staff is recommending approval of the site plan with the following conditions. Prior to final site plan approval, the permit status list must be updated. It's a common condition. Prior to final site plan approval, an updated boundary survey with a title opinion will be submitted to the city with their final plans. And then again, prior to a final site plan approval, all outstanding utility comments must be resolved. This is a site plan application for the planning board. A majority vote of the planning board members present and voting is required for approval. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Are there any questions of staff?
Hi.
Yes.
Go ahead.
John?
The final site plan approval, is that considered when the city commission?
No, this is not going to the city commission. This is when the applicant will submit to us their 5 plans that the city will stamp as official site plans that they'll be using to acquire their building permits. So before they can get to that point to start applying for the building permits, these would all need to be in place.
All right, because it just struck me as some of the utility things seem fairly major.
To some, yes. And they need to work that out, and that was one of those things that they definitely needed to work out. So, but they're having good discussions, and they're working the numbers right now, and they think that they're pretty close on a resolution.
Okay, so the final approval happens afterwards?
At the staff when they come to an agreement that they're going to meet those standards.
Okay.
Okay.
I just had I think I understand it correctly, but on page 4, under number 1, this utility one, if it is determined that capacity is unavailable for the proposed development, upgrades to the station will be required by Embry-Riddle. Are we saying required of? They would be paying for it, or required by them and we pay for it?
This is something that they're going to have to work out exactly who's going to be paying for this.
Okay.
That's one of the agreements that we need to have in place if
Okay.
it comes to that.
Okay.
That's in the conditions about the lift station.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wondered who was paying for it if it had to happen. So, okay.
Are there any other questions of staff?
Thank
you very much. Can we hear from the applicant, please? Don't have anything to say. By the way, I wanted to compliment you on the one just before this, Mercedes. They really did a nice job on the landscaping, and it wasn't all palms. It was a lot of mixture of trees that I thought was very nice. Now, on this one, I can't tell you, because the print's too small. I can't read it, so I don't know what you're putting in there, but it looks like it'll be all right.
And I would just say, I just, when I look at the existing building, well, of course, it's no longer existing, but what is going in there, I mean, I just love what I see happening there. It is so future-oriented, and
It really is.
it's beautiful. The architecture is beautiful.
And those other 2 buildings that are going up right in front to the right when you're coming in are really
gosh.
spectacular. They really are.
It's just another jewel in Embry-Riddle's
It,
crown.
Yeah,
it is.
that.
It's
And
stunning.
And they have a great crown.
Yes.
Is there anybody in the audience like to speak in favor? Anybody like? Oh,
Wait, he's got.
You gotta move quick here, gotta move quick.
Again, I'm halfway. That's the best seat in the house for temperature. Question, half and half. The city is talking about correcting that lift station with something going out west. Is this time to correlate to that or whatever? Because there's an old water line that we're no longer using. So are they connecting to when we do that?
That's one of the conditions of approval.
Okay, so I didn't know if they're part of that ongoing process. All right.
Well, I guess I don't have to ask if anybody's against. Because,
I make a motion we approve site plan approval in the Real Aeronautical University College of the Arts and Sciences Development 2012-025.
Second.
was there anything we had to add to that?
No, because they're in there.
Oh, they were in.
They're part of the, right.
Gotcha, okay.
The conditions are automatic.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? They've done a great job out there. They really are. So that's okay. Next is number 9.
Oh, no, we got a discussion here. Tree removal and associated penalties.
Okay.
Yes, okay. This is a discussion item. It was requested by Development Administrative Services Planning Division to review restoration requirements and penalties for damaged or unauthorized removal of trees or vegetation. Staff has provided the board with Article 18, Section 2 in your packet. This is from the Land Development Code. This addresses trees and native vegetation. Some points to consider for this discussion, and I want to have them up here for you. A couple of things. First, a clearing permit is required for the removal of all trees on private property. A clearing permit is not required for, in some cases, non-protected trees, including Australian pines, Brazilian peppers, China berry, etc. The removal of trees from commercial plant nurseries does not require permits. And if trees are damaged by fire, windstorm, lightning, etc., it would require an on-site inspection by the city prior to the removal, but that wouldn't require a permit for removal. As far as the restoration requirements, if there is illegal damage to or if there is illegal removal of trees on private property, trees are required to go through a restoration plan. The site is required to go through the restoration plan. Some information on restoration plans and restoration trees. One restoration tree would be required for every 6-inch DBH of removed or damaged tree. As an example, if there is a damaged tree that is an 18-inch DBH, that would require 3 restoration trees to be planted in its place. If evidence of the removed trees is unavailable, 8 restoration trees would be required per acre of the area affected. Also restoration trees. Looking at the size of the restoration trees. When we do have an applicant replace trees with a restoration tree, that tree is required to be 5 inches at DBH and a minimum of 15 feet high. In comparison, when we have new trees going into a development or a replacement tree, that requirement is to be 2.5 inches at DBH and a 10-foot high minimum height. So it's a substantial increase for the restoration tree, and it should be as a punitive effect for removing those trees. The property owner has the option of making a payment in lieu of placing the restoration trees on the site. The payment would be $1,500 per restoration tree. This goes to a Tree Reserve Act, a Tree Reserve account. This fund trees in cities, parks, right-of-ways, etc.
That is only on an undeveloped site. If it's a developed site,
there are restrictions, and if there's no electricity, if there's no no water, if it's a site that's been developed, they're not allowed to use that opportunity for the $1,500. And I also have something in here just to give you an idea of the $1,500 in comparison to perhaps urban mitigation. And urban mitigation happens on a site that's It's been developed, but you just can't put enough trees on there just because of the way the site is laid out. So instead of forcing the trees in there, we give them the option of paying into a fund instead of forcing the trees in. And that's a $300 per tree waiver that they would put into the fund also. So the planning board is asked to discuss this item and direct staff to to any possible modifications to the land development code, and if any are needed. And this, I should point out, this doesn't affect public property. It doesn't affect right-of-ways. This is really dealing with private properties here in the city.
With development?
With development, yes.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Now, like we have the provision in the land development code to where that they can remove specimen trees if they're in the footprint of a large building or whatever. So this doesn't have anything to do with that, right?
No, this is
This is illegal removal?
this is illegal. This is really dealing with illegal removal.
Oh, okay. So it's just illegal activity, and if someone did, like, you know, where we had, it was last month or the month before last, Emory Riddle had some trees that they had to move around, so that doesn't affect that.
That doesn't affect that. They were able to make that work, and the code allows some flexibility in moving trees around and replacing specimen trees. And that's all done through a permit process.
Right.
These aren't done through a permitted process, exactly.
Just somebody goes in with bulldozer and mows it down.
Exactly.
And I like the part about the following species are not protected. A woman's tongue. Did you read that?
I left that off.
I noticed.
It's going in there. Mother-in-law's tongue is how I always heard it.
I could have put that one in.
Misinterpretation.
Yes, slight.
Actually, there was an
Is
odd
it-
wording in there. You said that if a tree is taken down, that you need to put a restoration tree in there. Now, what if you have more than enough trees on the property to start? You don't have to put a restoration tree in then, do you?
I don't think the code.
Because that's odd worded in here. I mean, it's
Well-
kind of worded that way.
I don't think that the code addresses it like that. I think what the code is saying is, even though you have plenty of trees, you haven't pulled any permits to have any of those trees removed, and the punitive damage of not pulling those permits is you have to replace those trees that you removed, or you have to pay into the fund.
And you have to do that even though you have more than enough trees on the property.
Until you can come forward with a plan and a permit to actually remove some of the trees. That's what the city would require them to do. First thing you need to do is come in with your plan. Why are you removing the trees? You come in with a permit to remove those trees, and then it's perfectly acceptable. This is for people who decided, they looked out, they saw too many trees, and they wanted to remove them on their own without the city authority to be able to do that.
And part of the process of a development, say a major subdivision's going in or whatever, not only do they do surveys and site plans, there has to be a tree plan. And that's required by the city of Daytona. So where somebody physically has to go in there and count every tree that is a tree like 4 inches up, 4 foot or whatever, they're tagged, they're drawn onto a graph, and so the person that's removing them illegal knows that those trees are supposed to stay there. Because they physically tie the different colored ribbons around them if they're not supposed to be touched. And they're platted, so they know the city code enforcement can go back after they started their development, and they've got the sheet of paper in front of them, and they go, you weren't supposed to remove this, and then that's when the hammer goes off.
Okay.
Question. So does this apply to private residential property?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, it does.
This is very near to my heart because one of the very first things that happened to me when I moved to Daytona Beach 17 years ago was the catalyst for how I got involved in city government even to this level. I wasn't in my home for a week, and I look out my back window, and there's somebody chopping down beautiful oak trees. Not some scraggly little, weed that grew into a tree. Beautiful oak trees so he could park his RV. Now, of course, this was a tenant of the property, and he was gone, weeks or months later. And that tree was never going to grow again, and there was 3 or 4 of them that were chopped down. So, of course, I call City Hall and I make a big stink, and pretty much they didn't have a whole lot in place. It was just your tough luck you saw it. So that was the catalyst for me to go to the beautification board, which I ended up chairing for several years after that. That's how I got involved. And we are a Tree City USA.
Mhm.
And that is a very special designation. Not everybody gets that when they apply for it. You have to have certain criteria. And the best criteria is when you come over those bridges back and forth from the beach side of the mainland, you
See
see
green.
green.
Right.
Mhm.
You do see buildings, you do see other things, but you see green, it's the trees. And we need to protect those as much as we possibly can. I'm all for personal property rights, you know, private property, I understand that. But somebody should be in charge when someone wants to go out and just chop down a tree that's 2 feet around in diameter in their backyard because they want to park their RV. It affects your neighbors, it affects the property values of your neighbors. I know it's on your property, but you just did a disservice to the rest of the neighborhood when you did that. So I'm glad to see that this is going to be, and things like this are discussed and hopefully be in place.
And one of the questions is, if somebody does that, they take those trees down, is this penalty enough?
That's right.
Is this enough to discourage somebody from doing that, or is it something that they're willing to
I was told, how far do you really want to take this, lady? Because it's only about a $100 fine, if it's even proven that he did it. So that made me so angry that that happened.
That's why it's $1,500 now, probably.
That made me
Yes.
so angry, not so much that he did it, but that was the response. So I'm glad to see these things in place.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Maybe the public ought to know more about that. 'Cause my guess is a lot of people don't know that.
They
don't.
Well, I have
They don't
I have
know
a
that.
similar.
There should be a
No.
public
I think
information campaign,
part of our
you know.
part of our power bills or something that comes out, or just
Yes.
in some way
I
we ought to
agree.
do that. Just same as we ought to do about the grass being thrown out in the roads. With your
I'll
your
put it on
mower.
my list.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it looks to me like we got a way to do that.
When the tree's going down?
You soon find out.
Now.
They're saying this would be a penalty if you just go out willy-nilly and chop down beautiful
Chop
trees.
down
Yeah,
trees.
Let me tell you, the fine works. I had a similar story where I looked at my window on a Sunday morning and saw a truck pulling into the vacant lot next to my house, and you could tell they were not permitted tree cutters. And they were attacking some of the larger oak trees that we knew were more than 36 inches actually. But we called the police, then we also ran out and we started taking pictures. And actually it was the taking the pictures that got them to abandon their work. But they had already really butchered one tree. But they had to replace 5 trees with whatever they worked out. So it does work. But maybe if there's some way to tell the residents of next to vacant lots that they have to watch out.
No.
Do they have to replace it with a light tree?
Species that's accepted in the city's list of trees. It doesn't necessarily have to be the identical tree. But,
That they did, so it has to be an accepted, yeah. And I do think it's important to have this, I mean, there's a cedar tree that was about 20 feet tall, and they wanted to put a brick patio, and there went the cedar tree. Instead of moving the brick patio so the cedar tree could shade, and, it's done. And people don't know. And they don't know you need a permit to cut down a tree on their own property. They think they can just cut down any tree. And by the time I heard the buzzsaw and got home, the tree was gone. So, but I do think that somehow we also need to deal with what happens on the city right away. On Indigo Road, north where the Daytona Ale House is, there are 30 plus native longleaf Florida pines that actually are protected under Florida statute that are gone. They were cut down over the holidays, and there's only one property owner that would benefit, now being very visible, but it's the city right away, and there's no way to deal with it, is what I have been told. I called FPL. FPL, a person actually saw them being cut down, but since it wasn't on FPL property, didn't say anything. I dearly wish they had. And there's not a way for us, other than asking the manager of this particular property who said he was out of the country, there's no way to do any kind of investigation. There's no way to do anything. Private property, you're the owner, we can see a tree was cut down. I don't know if it's something that needs to be addressed maybe under the Code of Ordinances rather than just the Land Development Code. I don't know if it's something that needs to be able to have police interaction more than just code. But again, we are Tree City USA, and these were gorgeous longleaf pine. And anyone driving there now, all you notice is the huge expressway, and it's done. It's gone, and there's no way to get anybody to do any. And now you have the big ugly stumps on the city right away that the city eventually, I'm sure, is going to have to deal with. But
At our expense.
At our expense, yes.
Why can't you get into people like that after the fact? I mean, why?
Well, first off, to find someone or bring action against them, you need to have proof. Whether it was code enforcement or whether it was court, you would need proof as to who did it.
Wouldn't it always be the property owner?
Well,
This is the city, and it was a private property owner
That's why
across
code
the
is worded
street.
the way it is, because the person that decided and brought to the code board is the property owner.
Gotcha.
Property that, trees that are off the property probably are a code of ordinances. There is a code of ordinances section that deals with removing trees and needing city permission for that. And actually, we're working on this with them to fully investigate the removal and see if there's anything that can be done.
Okay, is there any fine in that Code of Ordinances part of it? There's nothing that would require?
Nope.
If it's-
Section 86201 talks
I don't know
about
what it's in.
approval to cut, trim, or remove, and it says, you have to get city permission if you're going to do that. 86202 talks about injurious substances, that you can't put those on our trees. And then that's it, the section ends. So there is, it could easily fall into 86203, a new provision setting forth penalties.
I think with
Okay.
evidence, they could be prosecuted under that 201,
Okay.
86201, and that's what we're checking now to see what we can find on that.
Okay, because I think if there's anything that needs to be done there as well, it should be something that's looked at as part of this.
Well, I've always thought that some of the massacring of trees really is done by the power company. I mean, when you look at some of those trees in Ormond going up, I guess that's Halifax.
Mm-hmm. Where they?
Oh, they're just a big V, and then hanging this way and this way, and the middle's all clean out. Now I know we got power lines, and but I do think they kind of overshoot sometimes. But I guess we're always happy for that during hurricanes because it doesn't take the power out. So but it's painful.
Smaller trees next time under the power lines.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else anybody wants to add to this?
Yes, I'd like to add something. I like this. I just think about an incident a few years now with the resident that wanted to remove a tree in his yard. And the only thing is with these penalties, and I like this, I don't even know if there's much we can do about it, but it seems that these penalties only fall or paid on people that are not as well connected to whomever. And it seems, Walmart comes in and knocks down, however many trees, 300 trees. And this gentleman that thought that that the tree was unsafe to his property, he had to come and get a permit, and it was big to do about it. And like I said, it just seems to be the nature of the beast, it seems, that these penalties oftentimes are paid by, like I said, the not as well connected, or you didn't know the right person, or whatever. I mean, not to be cynical, but I don't know what we could do about that, but I'd certainly like to make sure that that these penalties are.
But don't we do
shared
that?
across the
I mean,
board.
we do that when a Walmart comes in or anybody else. A certain number of trees they have, and vegetation, all has. That's
addressed
all
as
part
of their site plan and their approval.
So it's not that they can.
Yeah, I mean,
Take them away and
somehow they seem to get waived, or they get some kind of requirement that they get clearance to go ahead and do whatever they need. That's what I mean by
And these penalties don't distinguish whether it's a single-family residential home or whether it's a commercial development.
Absolutely not. I mean, I
Everybody's paying the
understand
same
that.
price, and maybe it's the, maybe separate that out so you do have maybe lesser penalties or even stricter penalties for some of the commercial developments.
And we have, like, there's a residential guy over here on, off the peninsula. He had a riverfront lot, so, and he was very well connected. And he cut a bunch of trees down. I think his fine was $10,000.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So they do pay.
That was,
And he wasn't happy.
And that was the big sticking point with the Walmart on the corner of
Mason.
Mason and Nova.
I voted no, but I'm going to be a total hypocrite and be the first person in the door. But I voted no. I voted no because of all those trees they were taking down. But
I agree. I did
Progress
the
hurts
same.
sometimes. So
They're selling trees, though.
Just one thing, it's a tree permit, it's not that expensive, is it? I think it's one of our, I don't have the fees in front of me, but it's a very minimal.
It's
Oh,
not
so
a
it's more.
significant cost for a tree removal permit.
and they're
It might be if you need, if you have a tree that doesn't look sick or whatever.
Right, I
approved,
understand that,
your point,
if
but
it's not
the
approved.
application is not expensive.
It's
Okay.
really a shame because there's some kind of blight. I don't know what tree it's.
Bay
attacked.
tree blight.
Yeah, it's all over the beach side. There's some really beautiful trees that are, going to make some great firewood, unfortunately.
Those you wouldn't need a permit
Better
for.
money used
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, but you better hire a professional
Mhm.
because they're 40 feet in the
They're
air.
huge.
But they're taking things on case-by-case basis. I mean, if something's falling into your house, they're going to look at that and take things to a case-by-case basis. So I think it's great that we've got these in place.
Anything else have to add? I do think we ought to find some way, if we can, to get the word out to the community, because I really think there's a lot of ignorance about it. Well, there's a lot of people don't know about it.
We can start working on that.
Yeah, okay. Anything else to be added? Thank you.
Thanks.
Number 10, I guess we don't have, do we?
Number 10 has been continued, and number 11 has
All
been
right, so we
continued.
go to other business then?
Yeah.
All right, downtown Blue Road.
Right. Downtown Blue Road Redevelopment Board met on March 30th. Hold up. And we had roll call. We met at 12 noon. Roll call and approval of the minutes. There was one item that was voted on, and it was a conceptual review for Renaissance Place, 400 Beach Street. And they revised the agenda. We received a report from Code Enforcement. There were several items on it: complaints about animals, lot clearances, maintenance codes, sign violation, and unsafe structure. We discussed the big discussion item, two items, board priorities, and then retail strategy. The priorities were the update of the LDC. This was for downtown. Marketing plan implementation, riverfront master plan implementation, and the public market. The priorities for the Blue Road redevelopment area were, of course, the update of the LDC, the Salvation Army relocation, the Root Canal mixed-use redevelopment, the Pocket Park, and then streetscape. There were a couple of public comments, and we were adjourned at 1:42.
Okay. Thank you. How about Midtown?
Okay, Midtown meeting was held on Tuesday, April 10th at 6 p.m. in the Commissioner's Chambers, and it's by roll call. The invocation, pledge to the flag, approval of the minutes from March 13th. Then a staff report from Public Works, which gave the updates on projects that are on the list to be done in Midtown. He told us when, how much funds was available, and if there were any funds for the projects, and the scheduling, and estimated costs. But the big discussion was the Village of Halifax, number 2, Village of Halifax number 2. The entrance on going in on Keith Street, there was only going to be one entrance, and they want the one off of Mary McLeod Bethune that's on Caroline because it had 2 entrances before. And Attorney Moore came and spoke about that. He's against it. The one entrance. The action item was the Midtown Master Plan amendment to the Midtown Redevelopment Plan, and that was continued. There were no redevelopment projects update. We had a scheduled workshop was held on Tuesday, 17th, from 5 to 7, and they needed a priority list to spend the money, what they have. Other than that, the meeting was adjourned.
Okay, thank you. Can we hear from Main Street, please?
We met Wednesday, April 11th. There was an action item, a conditional use approval for a new amusement ride on the boardwalk, the roller coaster that's coming, and that was approved. I mean, it really looks fabulous. I won't get anywhere near it, but it looks fabulous for those who have the courage. And the Ferris wheel, if you haven't seen it in a while, they changed out all of the lighting to LED. There are certain wavelengths of lights that don't bother turtles. Red frequency. So all of it has gone over to that. So the turtles apparently don't see any of it, and it's actually a whole light show on that. And they're going to be doing the same kind of thing on the roller coaster. There was a discussion on parking on Main Street that sort of went nowhere. And there was a discussion, review of Bike Week and special events. The board, before Bike Week, discussed special events. It's in the context of the E-zone. How is this going to fit? What happens? What might need to change? Specifically, itinerant vending was one that came up for this area. And so we started that discussion back. We will be continuing it, again, within the context of the E-zone. What may or may not need to change, how might it be better managed, what's done. So we had that, and then strategic planning priorities. That will be coming back. They just sort of gave us some ideas to think about, but also one of the ideas thrown out by the board was the Industrialist Row, those lovely old homes that are just north of Main Street behind, who is that? Steve Baker's old, Brooks Cleaners. Okay. The future land use map for that area is riverfront lodging and a large increase in density, and what the board is interested in seeing and has commented on it before and would like to see it happen is a change to that to preserve those historic homes. And also actually that fits with the E-zone plan, which speaks directly to the historic nature of the area. So that was something else that we threw in. And then we left after we adjourned.
That was ever changed in the first place, away from residential, because I mean, it certainly is residential.
Yes, it's very residential. No one seems to remember when that happened on the future land use map for the redevelopment area, but probably some dusty consultant report that's sitting somewhere on some shelf.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Do we have Nicholson comments, please?
Mr. Public.
Mr. Public.
John Nicholson, 413 North Granbury Avenue. Okay. Two things beforehand is on the tree ordinance. It doesn't say anything about dead trees, and I know you said the red bay trees, they don't have to come and get a permit, but I've been told, yes, they do have to have a permit. So there should be something in there that if the tree is dead, that they shouldn't be fined for taking it down. We do, I mean, the guy, I don't know if you're familiar, going over the Main Street Bridge, there's a beautiful house they just renovated about 4 years ago. He had a dead date palm in it, and then there was a dead date palm in the parking lot, and he was told he had to have a permit to take it down. And I said, no, you really don't. But there's no written that says you don't have to have a permit. Now, we've gone through this with red bay trees. They're all over, they're dead. I have 2 huge red bay trees. I almost got fined after the 2004 hurricane because my neighbor came in and chopped it way back because he didn't want it to hit her house. So she hired a crew. They came in and they just zapped it. And I came back from Miami, and there's piles in front of her house on the next road over, and I'm knocking on her door. She says, well, I'm allowed to do that. I said, you can't come on my property. So if you wanted to, you could fine me because the tree's on my yard, even though she did it. So I think that should have to be looked at. Secondly, it's my quarterly land development
When
code.
these trees come down, John, we'll check into that.
I know. I hope they don't die. They're huge.
Yes.
Bay trees.
Red bay trees are coming down all over. Submerged land. Again, I hope you look at it in the land development code. We really have to change that. It doesn't affect many properties, but a couple that do, it could be really devastating. 2, Florida air ratio that we have to look at. Parking, not only in the garages, the hotel, and then the shopping centers. You did one for, I think it's Volusia Mall or whatever it is, where Home Depot is, looking at their parking because they wanted to add something and whatnot. But most of those parking lots, they're vacant 99% of the year. Christmas they fill up, otherwise they're empty. So I know up north they're putting in condos and things of that nature to have instant shoppers and that kind of stuff. If it happens, I would like to have that here and the ability to do so. And lastly, on your and landscaping. I hope we have to look at the landscaping, that we don't put in these little nitsy little 10,000 bushes and whatnot, and they die after a year. It's a lot of money, and then it's a lot of upkeep. A lot of times, clean and sleek looks so much nicer. And lastly, on notification, if the staff could give them a second person, if the first person doesn't work out, a second or an alternative, because this guy tried, didn't get a group meeting. If there was a second one, he may have gone to a second person and had his meeting. You never know. Thank you.
Well, I don't think we have to worry about the submerged land anymore because we're not getting any rain, so there won't be any. I tell you, the way things are right now. How about staff comments, please?
I have 2 items. One, most of you probably aware the state statutes requires every local government have a designated local planning agency. Typically, it's done one of 2 ways. Either the city commission wears that hat and does that, or the elected officials, or they have a planning board do that. You guys are designated as the official land planning agency for the city. I wanted to, and one of your charges, and the primary one, is to review development applications as they come forward. Another aspect of that, and I know is done in a lot of other areas, are talking about things, particularly on lighter agendas than some of them that we've had lately, maybe some prospective things that where there isn't an application, but talking about issues, talking about things that we might look at or take on, and if everyone is comfortable with that, I think we'd like to start talking about things as part of your agenda when there is time, about some things that aren't necessarily a development application where you have to vote at that minute.
Like the tree ordinance you're talking about.
Like the tree ordinance would be an example of that. Maybe some interpretations. So long as we're dealing with this particular code, we have a lot of definitions. We have a lot of things that are regulated without a definition, for instance, or there are definitions or things that conflict with each other in this code. So maybe some of those kind of things we talk about. It could be long-range planning. There could be more current type planning things, but there won't be an application pending where you're asked to vote on it. It's just to discuss and get recommendations or advice on those items. So if everyone's in agreement with that, we'll proceed with doing that on agendas where we have some time. The other thing that I wanted, I probably should have mentioned sooner, but we have the last we've lost some positions in the planning department over the last couple of years, and this current budget year, actually our our secretarial position was frozen, hasn't been eliminated. Hopefully it will stay frozen and won't get eliminated in the next budget year. But as we're shrinking and our development applications are actually up fairly high right now, we've been doing the things that are most urgent and cutting back on some things. So our minutes, as you've probably noticed, have been shorter. They're more to the point. If you read the draft minutes when they come out, if you have changes, if you call and let us know a concern or something that's wrong, we can correct them, have them here, and get them signed that night. But we're going to have less time to be calling. We're shortening our minutes. We're not going to call to remind you about meetings. If someone needs that help, please let us know, and we'll try to accommodate you. But those kind of things that aren't our everyday requirements that have to get done, we're having to cut back to manage. And I just wanted to point that out. So please, if you know you're not going to be here, if you can call us and let us know, so we can let everyone else know. We always want to kind of a head count ahead of time that we know we're going to have a quorum. And we do call you when we are worried about a quorum. But want to just let you know about some of the things we're doing administratively to give you a heads up on that.
So you just like us to call early in the week, or
If
sometime
you
as
see
soon as
something
we
in the
can?
minutes you want changed ahead of time, please call Rose and let us know, and we'll change it ahead of time and bring it so that we can.
No, I was talking about the attendance,
The
too.
attendance, yeah. If you can't make a meeting, let us know as soon as you can. It
Yeah.
could be the day of the meeting, it could be now for next month, whatever. But the sooner we know, the closer we can gauge to whether we're going to have a quorum or not. That'll help a lot.
You still gonna get a lunch?
Sometimes she gets a lunch.
Sometimes.
Okay. Are there any more staff comments?
The training.
You
How about-
have a training, Manny. Put in your package. It's the title is something about for new planning board members.
I think it's very good.
I think it's pretty
It's gonna be good to
comprehensive.
read.
It's something we will be including
No,
in new
that's good.
planning board members packages, but I wanted to get that out to everyone. Actually, I had
No, that
thought,
was
I've
very
used it
good.
in other communities and thought we had it here, but we've recently had an opportunity to purchase some at a discount, so we did that, and we'll make sure new members get those from now on.
Well, I don't think there's any reason why being on the board for any period of time would actually preclude that you don't look through it. Actually, are there any comments from the board?
Okay.
I would just like for legal to kind of look in like the situation that we had tonight, like on the Family Dollar thing. Now, we can't, as a board, the way I understand it, we can't take away any land development codes that are involved in the process that are written in that black book right there. And I'm concerned about adding on things that aren't in the LD code, like the notification thing, because Ponce Inlet is in a huge thing right now to where the judge just ruled that the city circumvented the guy, and they've got a $15 million judgment just about against Ponce Inlet. But if you'll just research it so I will know, because I don't really know. You know what I'm saying? We can't take any land development code issues away from.
Are you talking about Jim Morris or the?
No, not Jim Morris.
Carrie, the Ponce Inlet one, it was a Byrd Harris Act, and the judge ruled against the city relative to Byrd Harris Act.
But just like the Family Dollar thing, and this is just for my information too, so that I'll know exactly. He met all of the city codes that there was. And it's a suggestion, it's not a requirement that they have the community meeting. And so where we voted him down because of that issue, what recourse would he have against us? That's what I want to research.
Okay. And while you're looking at.
Could I comment before?
Okay.
For my fellow board member, I don't believe it was that issue. That was one of the items raised in discussion. When we had our vote, we were voting on the comprehensive plan change. It was not, that was one of the items we discussed. So although we spent time on that issue, I don't think it's proper to say that was the one issue. Because I agree with you. If we voted him down on that one issue, I think that would be improper. I think our attorney would have told us that would have been improper.
It's not the criteria. He could have filed a petition for writ of certiorari and assert that we weren't applying the correct law, in which case, we would lose on appeal.
Okay. Though actually, one of the things I would find interesting in pursuing that, we have a lot of things that, yes, are land development code, and this might be a discussion, but we also have a lot of things that are policy. And policy is part of what is done here as well. It's part of what the staff relies on. It's part of what we rely on. And I mean, it's been spoken about several times. So I would like to know how both of those play together. Because we do have some general, I've heard Jim Morris talk about policy. It's been the policy of the city. It's been the policy of the city. So I would like to know.
Even if it had been a policy that staff encouraged people to have
Right.
neighborhood meetings, if it's not in here, they don't have to. So-
Right, I know they don't
Okay.
have to, but I'd like to know how much weight policy does have, though.
In
None at all?
In
So
a
no one
land
should have-
development context,
Uh-huh.
the only thing that carries weight is what's in here, and obviously if it's comp plan issue, following the comp plan.
Policy.
But any unwritten, this is the way we've always done it in the past, that doesn't really bear any weight.
All right. Then speaking of trees, I believe when we approved the amendment to the PD for Dick's Sporting Goods, I believe I recall staff saying that they wanted in there specifically that hat racking, which is a violation of code, go into that PD. Hat racking is when you cut a tree like a lollipop because it increases disease. It's going to bring about the death of the tree. And I want to know what planning can do to get code to actually realize that's a violation. I have been turning it in, not only there, but other ones, for 2 years now. Is there a disconnect that you know that code doesn't understand this is a violation, or what? I'm having a problem with what's happening here.
I have not spoken personally with code enforcement, but that's a violation, whether it was in the PD or not. Hat racking is a citywide issue and can be cited anywhere, whether it was a PD policy or not. As in fact, that agent for that evening promised here that he would speak to the owner, and they wouldn't do that. So
it happens continuously.
Whether it's a PD requirement or not, it is a city requirement. I will personally speak with code enforcement to let them know that what the requirements are and that is a violation. Now, they may not have the expertise or need some help, but I'm sure we can lend that to them.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from anybody on the board?
Yes, I have one thing that I need to tell you guys. First of all, I got a letter, I guess a couple weeks ago about, I think I'd missed 3 meetings in 12 months, something to that effect. And there was one of the letter reasoning. Now, the reason why I did not respond is because the next meeting will be my last because I'm moving out of Daytona Beach. Okay, so I wanted to tell you guys in advance. And that was why I didn't. I think the chair sent the letter. I don't know if I still need to. Would it be appropriate for me to still respond to that, or
it's going to be a real.
What should I do?
The Land Development Code actually has the procedures in there. Someone misses more than, I think, 3 meetings or more than 3 meetings in a 12-month period.
They have
There's
to
supposed
send
to
it.
be a reminder to them and ask whether they want to continue to serve. There's no absolute about it. It's just a warning and a discussion. And if there's extenuating circumstances that are have changed and you're going to be continuing to come, I think it would be not even an issue that would move forward. But you could respond if you want to. You didn't need to anyway. But that's just a code
Now,
requirement.
what will you do? Will you be at the next meeting?
Yes, I'll be at the
Be
next
one
meeting.
more?
Yes, I'll be at
After
the
this
May
one?
one.
May,
Yeah, I'll be at the
that's
May
it.
one, but that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Where are you moving to?
yeah, I have to go back to. I need to go back to my family. So
Which is
in
where?
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Right, Kentucky. So.
Another Kentucky.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think you're from Eastern Kentucky, right? Yeah. So I'm from South Central Kentucky.
Now, did you do that just because they're number one in the country in basketball?
No,
I just wondered if
ironically,
that had any influence.
I went to the University of Louisville, so I was really hoping Kentucky would get Beef.
Beef.
Yeah, okay.
When the meeting's over, I'll tell you a good Kentucky story.
Okay, the meeting is over, tell a story.
Okay, what's your story?
Okay, at the Final Four,